Beyond Belief is a podcast by, for, and about people who have found a secular path to sobriety. My name is John. Welcome. How you all doing? And I am here with Angela. Angela, how you doing over there?
I'm doing good.
Yay, Angela.
It is Friday. So
yes, it is Friday, and I am so glad. I was telling people in the chat before this started that I'm going to have the week off, and I'm just like, we're so ready for it. I've just been crazy busy at work, and I really need some downtime. So yeah, it's going to be good. So a lot has changed over the last 6 months. Meetings have moved from church basements to Zoom. The General Service Conference met online last April. Area assemblies and districts are doing the same. And even the International AA Convention was virtual. So geography doesn't seem to matter anymore, nor do borders. And you can go to meetings in any city, in any country, and anywhere in the world. So is this a new era for Alcoholics Anonymous? And if so, do we as AA members have an obligation to help usher it in? That's what today's episode is all about. So please join the conversation with Angela and I by calling us at 844-899-8278 or by sharing your comments in the YouTube and Facebook chat. Should be interesting, but please do participate. We definitely would like to hear from you. So, call in, chat away, and let's just make this a participatory podcast. So, Angela, where should we begin?
Well, we can begin with where the idea came about for this, I guess.
So
last weekend, we both attended. Well, I attended, and you helped do the tech for a workshop. Is that what we were calling it, or just webinar?
Yeah,
the
webinar workshop.
The emotional sobriety webinar that the Free Thinkers group in Arizona put together. It was great. A lot of good information in it. I tried to take notes, and I'm actually terrible apparently at taking notes because Jonathan asked, how it went, what I learned. And so I read in my notes, and they went something like this. The first person read what she had to say, and that I've heard her speak before at the 2014 convention for, well, it wasn't secular then, it was free thinkers and agnostics and, whatever else in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
But that she was talking fast, which is funny because I
she was talking really fast.
Yeah. And so I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't hear what she was saying.
Yeah.
And I wasn't used to the webinar form. And so I was trying to understand, if we were going to be seeing other people or just seeing the person talking. And then her name was blinking the whole time she was talking. And so it was taking me a little bit of time to acclimate. So I don't know what she said.
Yeah. And, she actually talked fast like that when she was speaking in Santa Monica.
Yes.
Remember.
Yes. It seems to be part of her personality. But then I got, I believe from John, emotions need to be regulated, not amputated. And that you can't reason feelings. They can't be reasoned out of. And that I think from Joe, a statement of if you want to learn to swim, you can't just read a book, you have to get into the water. Yeah. And that it was Bill's hope that emotional sobriety would be the next level in AA, kind of like a stage 2 recovery.
That's kind of where you got the idea, huh?
Yeah.
A new era for AA. Okay.
Yeah. And then he read from the Velveteen Rabbit, the Are You Real thing about the silk horse talk.
Yeah.
And Jonathan's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the Velveteen Rabbit, silk horse talk. And I'm like, I actually didn't read it, but we were all very emotional. So it was effective. And that, if you're having trouble, emotional trouble in recovery, it doesn't mean that something's wrong. And then a lack of inner intimacy leads to emotional dependency. I think that was Dr. Alan B. Yeah. And then he talked about the digestive system. And and nourishment, like the apple, he used
Mm-hmm.
as an example, that you bite into the apple, the stomach mulches, intestines extract from the apple what
He
the apple
actually
needs.
ate in front of the audience too, as a way to
Yeah,
demonstrate that. I don't know if you caught that.
yeah, yeah. And as it does it, it no longer is the apple. It becomes us. We become the apple, and then we eliminate what we don't need. And that's basically emotional sobriety.
Hmm.
And Jonathan's like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, it was really great." So he was glad I got something out of it. But I really did. I mean, there was more that I got out of it, but I just don't take notes very well.
Yeah.
And so I was still thinking about it. The next day on Sunday, and Sunday mornings, I run a Zoom meeting for my sponsor that's a more of a traditional women's meeting. And the topic, the topic was, let's see, what was it? It was rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path.
Rarely.
So it's like as far from what I was thinking about, within recovery terms almost as
Right.
possible. And so, the person shared on that. And then another person with long-term sobriety shared on that, this isn't a do-it-yourself program, and that, things like that. And so they went around picking people, and finally, somebody picked me. I think I was probably last because they knew I wouldn't be happy about it, or I'd say something that was, not easy to digest, which was true. I said that that's simply not true. That there is a pretty well documented path showing that AA isn't effective for everyone, and that we kind of do create our own
We do,
programs,
don't we?
because that's one of the things that most people say to newcomers if they're struggling with the higher power concept, is that you just can create your own.
Right.
And so yes, there are some things that we do that are similar, that are helpful, like within AA, we do sobriety, the majority of us,
Mhm.
and some programs do not, but that's what we recommend when you're
Right.
getting started. And so yeah, so I talked about that, and that it just fails a lot of people, and that maybe part of the reason is that we keep picking subjects to talk about from the big book as if they're a guide for today, rather
Mm.
than consulting current scientific understandings, or at the very least consulting some of Bill W.'s later writings. If we
Man,
want
isn't that
to,
the truth?
yeah, if we want to, keep the profit thing going, then we can at least use, his
The
latest
profit thing.
works. Yeah. Because a lot of people do. They seem to
Oh,
think that,
yeah.
they deify Bill and Bob.
They do. Yeah.
And so, if you want to keep going that way, fine, it's your meeting, but at least use, some of his later writings,
Yeah, when
because
he
he
reached a higher state of,
he did,
divinity.
evolve. Yeah. And so then, I mentioned, like the letters published to the Grapevine, which is, conference approved literature,
Mhm.
and then, bring those to the meetings. Yeah, the letter that he wrote that we were talking about, I think the title is The Next Frontier,
Yeah,
Emotional
that's
Sobriety.
right.
Yeah,
Emotional Sobriety, the Next Frontier. Mhm.
1958. Yeah. And what I loved, that I hadn't ever picked up on before, was where he talks about, let's see, I found I needed to exert every ounce of will and action to cut off these faulty emotional dependencies upon people, upon AA, indeed upon any set of circumstances whatsoever. And then later in the thing, we may be able to 12th step ourselves and others into emotional sobriety. And so I thought those were cool, both the dependent upon AA, because I've struggled with that during the pandemic. Yes, I think that we need to connect with each other, and I think Zoom and social distancing, we can do some of that, but some people have, I think, put others in danger, or put themselves in danger, because they felt like they couldn't stay sober unless they were physically in proximity of other alcoholics. And I've come
yeah, that's
around that
true.
maybe that's true, but to me it seemed like a dependence on AA in a non-healthy way,
Right.
and so had some judgments on that, but that's where the topic came from, or the idea came from, was that I attended this webinar and was excited about the ideas and what was presented, and it gave me a lot to think about as far as my own recovery and what I would like to see. And then the next day being in a traditional meeting where it was just the same thing from the big book of a part that I don't care for or think that's true. And so I had that feeling that I think a lot of us get, where we're like, wait, this doesn't equal out,
Yeah,
and how do I make it? And should I even, try to help this group move into, the 21st century, or do I just let them do their thing? A lot of things to think about
yeah,
on what is our help, what would be a helpful way to bring this information into these meetings.
sure. Right, to kind of shake things up a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because at
You
that
know,
meeting I was a little bit excitable,
um,
but
but
part of it is they
somebody
do
there
know
needed to
me.
hear that though,
Yeah,
you know.
they knew me, and so it wasn't, in a meeting where people didn't know me, I probably would have tried to choose my words even more carefully or something.
Yeah.
But there, I'm comfortable enough that I just could kind of go off like that, and know that people at least had the tools to write a resentment inventory if they needed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, is it our responsibility to drag traditional meetings kicking and screaming into the 21st century? Or are we in a simulation, so that this recovery stuff is nonsense? Or alternately, if we are in a simulation, will our current consciousness be leveled up, one-upped, if we are successful at bringing bringing real change in AA? There's a lot of questions
Yeah.
to think
Well,
about there.
your story reminded me of some of the things that I was thinking about when it comes to, a possible new era for AA, because what you experienced is something that I think a lot of people are experiencing, because
Mhm.
now with all these online meetings, people are being exposed to a larger variety of views, I think, and experiences than they were when they were limited to their meeting in their own town, in their own home group, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, and for example, there were a lot of people who never had access to a secular meeting
Hmm.
and are now finding them. Some of them are finding them by accident and thinking, hey, this is pretty cool. And others sought them out, once they
Hmm.
had that opportunity. So, what I'm noticing is that, I guess the breakdown of barriers geographically
Hmm.
that is allowing for a more free flowing, free flow of ideas, more so than
Yeah.
we were getting before, and more interaction with people from different walks of life and that kind of thing. And that's what happened with you. I think
Hmm.
you were in that meeting and
Hmm.
you were making points that other people may not have thought of before or heard of
Oh
before,
yeah.
but now someone in that meeting has, and they
Hmm.
might just pick it up and go to another meeting and talk about that.
Right. Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
then be
it's
shunned,
something.
and no, I'm just kidding. but but yeah, no, I agree, and that's one of the things that has been helpful about this. So I think that we are, it's going to be different when we do go back to brick and mortar, and that some of the meetings are going to be hybrid and some will be stay on Zoom, but that I don't think AA will be completely the same. I
um,
mean, because just like with that meeting, it was somebody trying to bring a traditional subject, and then there's me that's like, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this,
yeah,
and that's going to be everywhere now, and people are going to be starting meetings that are more secular. And also there's stuff going on, like one of the things that our group is doing is we've created a subcommittee that's looking into what's going on at a discussion that's going to happen at the 71st conference regarding the Lord's Prayer.
Oh, really? What's that about?
And it's I think somebody had submitted, probably Roger. Roger, let me know if you're listening. That we shouldn't say the Lord's Prayer at any of the international conventions, right. And so they were going to discuss it this year, but then things went down the way they did, and they decided it was too complex of a topic to be able to make a quick decision on. So they had some discussion on it, and then moved it to being discussed next year. So our group wanted to understand what's going on better, so we created a subcommittee to look at it more, and then bring it back to the group for us to send a letter to whoever we need to send a letter to express our group's thoughts on it. And right now, I guess the discussion that has been had at the conference level, or whichever committee is working on this, is that the takeaways they have is the use of the Lord's Prayer at meetings and at big international conferences can create controversy and supports the perception that AA is a religious organization. And so I thought it was interesting that they used the create controversy, because then they can fall back on some of the tradition stuff that, that we do not engage in controversy, as a way to possibly move this out of our moray or whatever,
That is really interesting that they're going to be talking about that.
Yeah.
By the way, we do have a caller. Should we take this call?
Sure.
See who this is. Hello, how are you?
Hi, this is Fred in Virginia.
Oh, hey, Fred. What's up?
I've been listening to Angela's GSR report of Arizona and her talks. I think she's hit something on the head. I remember way back when they had that stage 2 recovery. That book came out. I think it was in the early 80s, in the late 80s, and 1988. I remember in Macon, she had that. They had that thing in Georgia where they were the last state to pick a delegate for the state conventions out of the hat.
Oh,
and they were trying to make it to majority rules. So some of the things she's talking about today are exactly the same with the new era of AA as the what she's going through now with the state, with the conferences and stuff, or the webinar that she was on.
Yeah.
So I think that you look at that book, Stage 2 Recovery. I remember I gave it away. I had a copy of it. I gave it away to somebody that I never received it back. But they talked about toe tappers, people who danced around the conversation or their life. They talked about the dependency, codependency issues, and all the things that happen. And the codependency was always a big issue.
Yeah.
Whether you needed somebody else to keep you sober or not, it's the same thing today.
Yeah.
And when you realize all you have to do is not drink.
Yeah.
My goodness, it's a whole different story.
It is.
Well,
thank you, Fred, for calling. I appreciate that. I think that you've given us something to talk about there, as far as the different way of viewing sobriety like that, or recovery in general. So thank you so much. You have a good weekend. Okay.
Take care, Fred.
Okay, because that was a really great book, and
Mhm.
I really thank you, John, for bringing your show to the end,
Oh,
because
heck. Well, thank you for calling.
without you, without you, it seems like it's pretty hard to get to meetings around here because
Ah,
of the COVID, and at least there's a topic,
yeah,
at least there's a potential.
yeah,
Seems like a sobriety. Sobriety is always in the future
yeah, you're right.
because everything we've accomplished so far, if we don't look to the future, we're never. That's the new era,
Yeah. All right, Fred. Well,
Thank
thanks
you so
again. I
much.
appreciate it. You take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, it's something that he said there about, it's hard to find meetings in Virginia, and
Mhm.
now he can find meetings anywhere he wants. He can go to meetings here. He can come to this live stream. He can
Right.
find all kinds of information now online and all kinds of meetings all over the place. And that's a game changer,
Right.
because now, Fred is no longer just exposed to his groups and the culture of AA in his local area, but he is becoming exposed to AA as it is taking place all over the world.
Right.
And it's a lot different in different places.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Bob
No.
K made a comment there, and I wasn't quite sure if this is the real Bob K. I think it is because his picture is there. And the reason I say that, Bob, is we actually have had somebody pose as you that really wasn't
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So he said. He says that even some of the fundies can see that the Lord's Prayer, at the very least, creates a perceived affiliation with Christianity. I would say
Right.
so.
Yeah. And that's one of the talking points that they were discussing for, the next, the 71st conference,
Yeah.
was
So
that,
that's going to be
it
the
was the
next General Service
perception.
Conference. That will be the one
Yeah,
coming up
that'll
next.
be
That's really
the one
interesting.
in May. So yeah, they can see that although prayer is a part of AA history and widely used in some areas, it can make some members feel excluded. And then to keep in mind when selecting how to end your meetings, how is that perceived by newcomers? Then they mentioned the diversity of the fellowship and need for everyone to feel included, and that maybe they'll send out a survey for the fellowship for wider sharing of opinions and stuff. And then the last thing I put as a note is that that they were talking about, given the international nature of the conference, specifically in question, how the Lord's Prayer would be perceived by people in other
Good point.
countries,
Good point.
which, I think that we tend to forget about. So that was something that I thought was interesting as far as at least culturally speaking,
Mhm.
AA starting to move into into another direction. There's also a lot more. I speak a good English. Okay. A lot more people are becoming aware of that document that somebody in our AA Beyond Belief group posted today regarding the synonym cult influence
Oh, yeah. Is
on
that from the
Alcoholics
Orange
Anonymous.
Papers? Is that what that is
No,
from?
it's from the UK Minority Report
Oh, yeah.
in 2017, and it is kind of a dry read for those who are not used to reading papers like that. I mean, the name itself, Synonym Cult Influence on Alcoholics Anonymous, Addiction
Yeah.
Treatment and the Criminal Justice System, 1968 to 2017. That's the full title in case anybody wants to look it up. But just having that out there, because it does explain a little bit why we have people who have either 25 years of sobriety or 30 years of sobriety, and then they left for a while because it got too much for them, and are coming back because they've heard of secular meetings or this take on things. And then talking about the difference that when they got sober 30
Sure.
years ago, there wasn't all this talk about God, that there wasn't, as much of the, it was just different. It was more of a talking about things that helped you get and stay sober and how to be of service and kind
Another
of change
caller.
those things.
Another caller. Sorry, Angela.
Oh, no, I think it's
Who
great.
this is.
Yeah, I just talk when we don't have people.
And there's another one in queue as well. Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Who is this?
One of the things I've noticed, that I thoroughly am just so glad that I found the secular AA community. I probably sometimes feel like I don't know what the people that were muckers and hardcore about reading the first 164 pages were, but I often feel like that because in a sense because I'm just so high on it. It's like a permanent cloud, and I feel so energized that and I enjoy talking about it and telling other people about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it falls on deaf ears, but it's nice. I did a talk a couple of weeks ago at a halfway house, and they were interested in knowing about that sort of stuff. But then we're stuck with COVID.
Right.
And so we can't get out and do a meeting, So,
Yeah.
but I get energized by this, and I feel it's like I gotta watch myself sometimes. Just because,
I hear you. I felt the same way. In fact, it was kind of ironic. I had been in AA for quite some time, but was never really involved in it. But after we started our secular group in KC, man, AA came alive for me. I got more involved with the different service organizations within my community and in our area, and was really more excited about AA because I thought about the possibilities, what AA could be. Kind of like what we're talking about today, Angela. The possibility of a different future for AA, a different culture, I guess, within
Yes.
Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think it's something that will evolve over time, and maybe this COVID event is going to push it along. So, yeah. Well, thank you for calling in. I missed your name. What's your name? Where are you from?
Oh, it's Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Joe M.
Oh, Joe M. Oh, there you are.
Thank you.
You actually called
Yeah.
in. How about that? Nice to hear from you. I should have recognized your voice. We actually
very
talked
well.
once before on the phone. So cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
It's so good to hear from you, Joe.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it really
You guys,
is.
thank you for the podcast.
Oh, man. Thanks for
podcast.
listening and for all your
Really well.
support. It's so great to hear from you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Love that.
All right. Good night.
How cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
Joe's always in there. I mean, I don't know that he's missed one, and
He has not missed one of these live streams yet.
And so I think I would be concerned. It'd be like, what happened? There must be a tech problem. Joe's not there.
Yeah, how fun.
Yeah,
and he's always making comments too.
Yeah. He keeps the chat going. So,
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah,
you make this live stream what it is.
I think so. Yeah. So, do we have another caller, or are they?
No, we had one in queue, but they left. They might come back.
Yeah, they're like, wait, nope, I'm not waiting. Impatient.
Some things that I was thinking about that COVID has done, because it has pushed everything online. Like the General Service Conference met for the first time online. That General Service Conference would cost a lot of money, and they can save a fortune now by doing it online.
Yes.
They can also make it maybe more transparent by making it accessible for people who can't go to the conference to maybe at least watch, and get maybe some updates online and so forth.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity for more people getting involved in service, but I think there's also going to be a need. Here's the person calling back.
Okay.
I think there's going to be a need for a different structure. A structure that handles specifically online meetings and online resources.
Yeah.
Let's see who this might be. It's area code 914. Hello. Oh, I didn't press the talk. Hello.
Hello. My name is Catherine. How are you tonight?
Hi, Catherine. What's on your mind?
I'm calling I avoided Facebook for many years. And then I had to go on it. And that is when I discovered AA Beyond Belief and the Google groups and the other groups. And it's been a godsend. Oh, use the wrong word. Anyway, and I just wanted to share that at one point before COVID, a couple of folks in one of the meetings started an LGBTQ meeting and added secular to it. And I was very excited because it was going to be a secular meeting. And it just didn't take off because I don't know if the reason it didn't take off is because it was a combination of two almost very different populations. But it didn't.
Mhm.
And I don't really have a large network, and I've been doing things online, but I have to say I miss kind of the in-person, the communal feeling.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to start one without having at least another person interested.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm seeing more and more people are starting secular meetings.
Right.
And so I'm
Well,
getting a lot of hope from that. And maybe
yeah.
I just have to wait for the vaccine to come because, there aren't any rooms to meet in anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
wonder what you
That's part
thought.
of it. That's part of it. I think too that you might not actually
What
even
you,
need another
what kind of ideas you
secular
might have.
person. So like in my area, there are people that are part of our home group that aren't secular, that are believers, but they think it's important to have a meeting like ours, and so they support our group and participate and take do service positions and things like that to keep our meeting going. And not that we need that anymore. We have a pretty large group, but also, like our area delegate that I was working with, she is a strong believer in not having the Lord's Prayer and in making the meetings more secular sounding without changing the literature too much, because she's not a radical like me. But yeah, that's another thing is on how to do that. That she would be interested in helping start a group. And so that's another way to do it is that the person doesn't, who helps you doesn't have to be another secular person or within the free thinker realm or anything. If they're interested in helping, and that some people really take, the 12th step seriously and would do that in order to attract or to bring in, have a meeting for newcomers, particularly who feel like they can't get sober in AA because of the God language.
Yeah. I probably could have started that meeting by myself if I was able to go to every single meeting and just wait for someone to show up. But I thought it was really important to have another person there with me because I wanted to make sure that somebody was always there to make sure that that meeting would take place. And there's no way that I could do it. So having a partner help me start that meeting was really helpful. And we were just really lucky here in Kansas City for whatever reason. It took off pretty quickly. People were really interested, and we experienced some of what you were talking about, or maybe it was the caller. I don't know, where people who had been in AA for years ago. I think you mentioned this, Angela, years ago, stopped going because it became too much for them religiously. And then when they learned about a secular AA meeting, started coming back. We had some of those people, that were coming to our group who had that experience. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think I just saw a Just In news broadcast on our AA Beyond Belief Facebook group from Roger that says, guess what? AA World Services includes secular as one of the types of AA meetings in its meeting guide. So local intergroups and central offices are inclined to do the same these days.
Right.
So yeah, yay.
That's very true. I mean, and now it's just taken for granted. I think that most intergroups say, "Oh, secular meeting, sure, no problem." It's like, in Kansas City, it was not even a thing. It was like, yeah, we'll do it, no big deal. But before they had that meeting app and had that as a option that you could just click on, groups were saying, don't want to do that, don't like it.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why we put like atheist in our title, so that people would know that that's what kind of meeting it was, because you can't always tell with we agnostics and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And so the downside is then some people feel like they can't attend if they're not atheist, even though the full title has agnostics and all others in it. But you learn as you go. So newer meetings that are starting, another one in town is called Beyond Belief, and so we're learning. But yeah, our meeting, it was 4 of us that started, and we really needed 4, I think, because that did ensure that 1 or 2 people were always there. And and so one of the members that did get sober in our meeting, there were just 2 of us there. And he was, kind of disappointed, of course, because he hoped to like just hide out in the back like other newcomers do. And you can't do that when there's only 2 other people there. So it was pretty funny. But
so before we got that call, Angela, I was talking a little bit about the infrastructure, and I wanted to I wanted to go to bring that up again. Okay, this is just my theory, and I'm not I'm not really all that smart, believe me. So I might be totally wrong on this, but I kind of think that I used to think that we have one of the great strengths of AA is our infrastructure for service, so that like if you needed help, you could call a phone number anywhere in any city in the world and somebody would answer it. And there were meetings all over the place that you could go to. There were people that could be sent out to your house or whatever, they're just an amazing infrastructure. But that infrastructure was built during the time when there were phone books, when people were using phone books and people were using paper, and people were more centered on whatever their local geographic area is. And of course, with the internet, that's been breaking up more and more and more. But now with COVID, it's just completely. So now it's like, okay, you have all these online meetings, and these online meetings are not going to go away. So how should they be listed? Should they be listed in the cities where those people come from? Maybe those people come from all over the world. I just think there needs to be a different infrastructure now to help people find these online meetings, because when these online meetings started, they were just started because they couldn't meet in their regular place. So they were just listed on their districts or their local intergroup websites. And that doesn't really work when you have so many people from all over the world that want to go to these meetings. So I think there needs to be some sort of infrastructure that utilizes the online resources. And I think that can start with AA.org. They can use that as a place to kind of facilitate the online infrastructure that we need.
Yeah, I mean, they do have the online intergroup, but it's a bit dated.
Yeah, it is.
And and I don't think that it's quite, I could be wrong, so I don't want to offend somebody if they're part of that. But I think that there needs to be some more thought and additional resources put to updating that with this culture that we're in now, as far as Zoom meetings and the number of them that are going to be happening. Because, as things do open up, it's still going to be a different reality than before we moved into this phase. And so we have to think in different ways on how to do things. So, yeah, I agree that some thought needs to be put into how to structure. And if we can take the best of what AA had, already going and move forward with some new ideas to do a yes and, I think that'd be great. I'm not sure, how they would do it. I haven't given that a whole lot of thought. But, one of the things that I think makes AA special or helpful or whatever is the service structure and just the structure itself of the individual group. So the individual, the group, and then the district, and and how all of that works, because it does seem to me that that it's one of the few places where I do see people who have disagreements or different opinions truly get a fair hearing. They get to truly voice themselves, and people intentionally put themselves in a place to try to listen to the good, or whatever that person is saying is helpful. Make sure that they're truly heard, and then be willing to change their mind on whatever issue. And we don't have that in a lot of places right now. So, the possibility is, I think, with it doing more things online, like conferences and such, that hopefully more people will be able to see that process. I don't know if they'll get the same feeling from it because it's online, but they'll at least get to witness how it works, and see, that thoughtfulness or caring into, trying to get all voices heard happens.
I think that there's a chance for that if you think about it this way. I think that when I got involved in general service, and most groups and most people in AA don't get involved, and the reason they don't is because our home groups are totally autonomous and are at the top of the food chain in AA. So in other words, people are happy with their home group. Their home group can do whatever it wants to do. Why should they even get involved in general service and all of that? Well, now your home group is the whole world, and now so things can change. We have another caller. Let's see who this might be. Oh, I love these calls. Hopefully it's somebody nice. Hello, how you doing?
Hello.
What's up? What's up with you?
Hello?
We may have lost him.
Oh.
Or maybe I didn't do it right, but I think we lost him. I could call him back. I'll try to call back.
Oh my gosh.
What happened? Maybe he had the wrong number though.
Right? Could be.
Hello.
Hello, how you doing? Were you calling AA Beyond Belief?
Yeah, this is Bob K, the real one.
Oh my God, Bob, how you
Oh,
doing?
the real Bob K.
Yeah. See if I
How
can get
do-
where
how
it's
do
a
we
tiny bit
know?
quieter.
Yeah.
I
How do
just,
we know?
I have a couple of comments just about opening up the content of AA meetings to scientific stuff and things like that. There's a little bit of danger in that from my perspective. A lot of people go to AA to talk, and not knowing anything about the subject doesn't necessarily stop them. So at a step 9 meeting, the guy that wants to talk, you know, I'm not this far in my program yet, but then he talks for 6 minutes. So we're going to get the fourth hand version of some good scientific information, kind of garbled through 3 tellings. And I don't know that that's going to be very useful.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think we're getting it, like you said, anyway. So I don't know that would change. But the point that I was trying to make is using the big book as if it is the ultimate resource. Like there's nothing else that has come after it.
Anyway, I'm not hearing you guys at all, so I'm going to hang up.
All right.
And go back on the computer.
Okay. So yeah, so I hear what he's saying. I mean, we can't get all scientific-y, I guess, but and I know our personal stories are really the magic of AA. But I think what the thing is that, you know, people are now using the big book as if it's the scientific truth.
Right. Yeah. You know,
that's the problem.
That it was divinely inspired, and I've heard that in meetings before, that they felt that that the big book was divinely inspired, and you know, and that it's what you should be using. You know, doing the steps straight out of the book, and first 164, and all of that stuff, and so that was what, you know, I was really thinking about when I had this discussion or this topic come up, was that, you know, that there is more to recovery and staying sober than that, and that I don't mind, you know, people talking about it or using it, but just to put it in the context of when it was written. And then, you know, our group is very practical, and so we do, you know, talk about current scientific stuff. Sometimes people will, you know, say, I read this article. I mean, we're not going to go and research the article and fact check and then come back and tell everybody, you know, that yes, you can believe in what this person said. You know, we still take it as we do with any share, that, you know, if there's something useful in there, cool. If not, you know, cool. And no, none of us are here as an expert. Some of us may be experts, but we're not in the meeting as an expert speaking for the scientific community or AA as a whole.
You know, I'm not totally anti-big book, but I do think the big book is kind of problematic for us. I mean, and again, I'm not here to say the big book is terrible and we should burn it and ban it and all that kind of stuff, or even rewrite it. But like you said, Angela, put it in its context, put it back in its time, consider it as the original document where we grew from, you know. But it's really dangerous to have a book that's almost 100 years old now and use that as the source of our topics, you know, when we have to, you know, read language from, I think it's crazy almost. I mean, that book is almost 100 years old. Seriously, it's crazy, you know. So, you know, that's a problem. And if we are going to move beyond, you know, and into a new era, I think one thing that's going to have to change is how the language that we use to describe our experience. We cannot use this language from the 1930s. We've got to use our own language. And I mean, and I don't mean just the way that we talk in meetings. We can do that already. And I'm not talking about the grapevine and all that crap. I'm talking about a book that addresses the program of recovery that people can refer to. You know, that we can tell the world. I mean, when they wrote the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, one reason they did it is they wanted to let the world know what they do. Right? Well, hell, why don't we want to let the world know what we do now? Do we still do what we did in 1930 or whatever? I guess we do. You know, but some of us don't.
I was going to say, yeah, some of them do.
That's my preaching. and get fit and get video and get
Yeah.
fiddlio, whatever he says. Doesn't the big book itself say we realize we know but a little? It does. It does say that in
Right.
there, and a lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
They always say it's they always point out, because there's so many inconsistencies. They'll point out the part where it says this book tells you exactly how to recover or something like that.
Right.
Whatever. I can always get I can.
You sounded like you were preaching the good news of secular AA right
Oh
there.
Lordy, I do. The thing is, though, with me, the reason I get so passionate about the big book is because, God damn it, I was one of those muckers. I was the guy with the yellow highlighter that was highlighting every single freaking sentence of that book,
Yeah.
and reading it repeatedly. And oh God. And then finally, when I got to the point where I realized, that I don't really buy all that stuff, or at least I wanted to explain it a little bit differently in a more secular way, people started using that book like it was a law book to show me where I was wrong.
Right. Right.
Crazy. Anyway, sorry, I'm kind of losing it. Ed W. says, about 20 years ago, Susan Power wrote a book about health and sobriety. She couldn't handle AA meetings. She talked a lot about the missing elements of recovery, nutrition being just one element. That's a good point, too.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the things people like about Jeffrey Munn's book is that towards the end of it, he addresses some of the things that we don't talk about in recovery that much, or at least in the big book and stuff. Our meeting talks about it, but health being one of them, and exercise and meditation and stuff. And so, yeah, I think that's been helpful, or I've heard it's helpful to some of the people in secular recovery.
And this person says that reportedly Thomas Jefferson cut out all mention of miracles in his Bible. That's true, the Jefferson Bible. And he says we can do that with the big book too. And a lot of people have. I did it myself. It's so interesting when you do that too. If you go through the big book and you read a paragraph, okay, you can cross out the God stuff, and all you have left is the practical action, the thing that you actually did, or the experience that you actually had. And then the other stuff that says, and it's all because of God, and we grew closer in our love with God, blah, blah, blah. You just erase all that crap, and that's all you need to do anyway.
Right.
Oh boy, I need to chill.
Yeah. I don't think much of it would be there if I were to do that, because I'm not a wife, so there goes for the wives, and so there'd be like 10 pages that I could use. So so yeah, I don't know if that works, then cool, do it. I'm all for what people find that's helpful for them. And taking what you want and leaving the rest. I remember that from my teen years in Alateen, because it's an Al-Anon saying a lot, but it's not said a lot in AA. Nobody in my first few years ever said take what you want and leave the rest. And yet it was the close of our Alateen meetings, I think. Take what you want and leave the rest. The things that were spoken in confidence and should remain confidential. Holy crap. Yeah. And yet I can't remember my partner's phone number.
I like the way Bree words this. She says, our physically younger members. I like that. Physically younger. That's right. I'm a younger member too. I'm just not physically younger, but I'm young, and I'm young mentally.
Yes.
Yeah. They seem to think that we need to prepare for the onslaught of members as their generation is less religious than previous generations. I think it's true. And also, and I'm not going to go into the big book again, but when you give them a big book, they think it's absolutely weird. But I think that's true too, that you're going to see some more of that. Oh
right.
boy.
Yeah. And also, again, it's a language thing too, because a lot of the medical community and treatment centers, which these people tend to go to, I mean, they've been raised in a culture that actually consults, science and stuff. And so most of the people we're getting are going through treatment centers before coming to our meeting. We don't get a lot of people that just show up because they think they might be an alcoholic. And particularly our young members are not showing up just because they think they might be. It's through treatment centers and stuff. So being open to the language that they use. So our meeting, doesn't require you to say that you're an alcoholic. You can say, I'm Angela and I can't drink alcohol safely, true statement. And, yeah, things like that. And so being open to that language of, what is the other one that, some people get really frustrated with it within recovery because they think that it's watered down, or it's, what's the other term for it? Therapized or things like that. But, I think that's where we're at right now. The culture that we're in, has a lot of that language in it. And what is my goal within the recovery community? And, everybody may have a different goal, but mine is to help, somebody who is seeking to get sober or recover from, addiction. And so I'm going to use the language that's going to be most helpful for them. And for some people, it is God language. Again, I sponsor people who are Christian and LDS and all of that kind of stuff. And so I use the language that's better for them. But I'm finding that with the younger people that come to our meetings or that are coming in, they're coming in from treatment centers and they have an aversion to the word alcoholic. And so, letting them be able to describe what's going on with them and what they think their problem is, I think helpful.
Something that we can look at to test whether or not these online meetings are here to stay is look at some of these countries that have already dealt with COVID successfully. For example, I was but I was emailing with a friend of mine in Australia, in Sydney, and he says that things have pretty much gotten back to normal there in Australia.
Yeah.
So, but he's still having these online meetings. So, I wonder if if we're going to just see that as life returns to whatever the normal is, then those online meetings are going to continue like they are in Sydney. In fact, I think in Australia they've actually grown the number of online meetings that they've had. That they started with. They actually have more of them now, I think. If I haven't paid, so
yeah.
So
No, I think our lifestyle is like that. And I would say that, some of our younger members, it's easier for them to have an online meeting. Not everything, but a lot of their life is already online. And depending on where they're at in their life. So I'm noticing the people who are in their 30s that are doing the starting a family and, mid-career and things like that. It's easier for them to be able to pop into an online meeting as their partner is putting their kids to bed or something than it is for them to drive across town and be there in person and then, go back home and do all of that. So I think that that's a factor, or going to be a factor as well, that we should consider more.
Yeah. I want to know if people can curse at meetings. I think ever since I've been in AA, people have been cursing at meetings.
Oh, yeah. There's some signs that are up at meetings that say that
that you can't.
Basically that as you get sober, your language improves or something like that. That you don't swear as much. Which, I don't know when that's going to happen.
Sometimes it's liberating. Sometimes you really need to say the F word. I think I don't know.
And just like sometimes at meetings, people need to just say their frustration with other kinds of meetings and stuff like that. It's part of getting it out of our system. And sometimes those words are the most appropriate word for what's happening at the time. But yeah, so as we're rounding out, some other ways I was thinking of that we can help with this if we want to is, to start new meetings, whether online or in person, when you can and when it's feasible. And then the first thing to do, register with GSR. Or GSO,
Right.
that you're meeting, and then they send the information to the local central office or intergroup or however it is that your area does things. Sometimes it's district, and then decide on somebody to be a GSR and start attending the district meetings. And by doing that, you're becoming a part of the process. So you get to be part of deciding how AA is going to run. Whether we design a new way of having online groups be representation of, the larger community and stuff like that. Or, another easy thing is to just bring topics like the 1958 letter to meetings, whether they're secular or not. I think it's particularly helpful if you're attending a more traditional meeting to bring stuff like that, because it is something that a lot of people don't know about. And that's again where this pandemic has been helpful, is that that more people are looking at the various literature and looking at AA history, and didn't know a lot about all of these different things before, because they were just in doing their thing. They were doing the thing that was keeping them sober, which was going to meetings and maybe sponsoring and whatever. And then they didn't know all of this other information and history and stuff was out there, and now they do. So I think it's going to be a different AA.
Yeah.
But maybe not.
Did you see Get Fiddlio's comment? It kind of cracked me up. He said, thankfully, the third tradition only specifies a desire to stop drinking. It doesn't say shit, enjoy the irony, about profanity.
Right, I love it.
Yeah. At our first meeting, not our first meeting, but at one of our early meetings, a woman said the F word and whatever, and then she said, "Oh man, am I allowed to cuss here?" And so I just went. I when it was my turn, I said like every other word was an F bomb or something.
Right.
To say, I think that you got to be free to do. But I know it can be a little ridiculous at times. But I don't know. I've always heard the cussing ever since I've been in AA. I don't know how you can get rid of it.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know that, actually, I do recall in our meeting in some of the early days that there was two members who were older in both age and sobriety. So physically as well, Bree. And they were having a hard time because we did have a younger new person who that's all they did. They'd, go on like the rant, and every other word was a swear word. And the concern that they had was that we were in a religious facility and how that might appear, the reflection it would have on our group. And so they wanted to try to put some sort of statement in our, meeting template regarding that. And so we had a group conscience, and I said that I didn't think that was appropriate because most of us don't get here, in the greatest condition. And so being able to express what's going on with us in the language that is most helpful to us is probably, something that I think is important. Plus we're an open meeting, if we were closed, then, maybe you can do whatever. Also, we meet in a Unitarian fellowship. I mean, they've heard worse. This particular one did a sermon on Battlestar Galactica. So I'm pretty sure that they're going to be okay, with that. And if they had a problem, that they would come and talk to us about it and we could address it then. But trying to preemptive, get people to not swear, just it seems like useless to me. Not helpful.
Joe wanted you to really quickly refresh us about the letter, and you're talking about the letter on emotional sobriety, right?
Yeah. It's the 1958 letter called "The Next Frontier: Emotional Sobriety," written by Bill W. The Bill W, not the other Bill W that, that's written another book and stuff. But yeah, the Bill W. And it's, as I understand it, it was a letter that he wrote after receiving a letter from somebody who was suffering from depression and trying to, understand, or reaching out because they didn't understand why they were still feeling depressed when they've been a member of AA and they were sober, and, isn't it supposed to get better type of a thing. And since, Bill W. Suffered from depression as well as, other things, he felt compelled to write. And that's how this came about, is that he, was looking at the other things that he had learned over, how many years was that? 58. And then, a lot of years. I don't do maths well. What else he's learned. And it was that, that there's an emotional sobriety, that you can't just change your addiction from drinking to AA. I mean, you can for a short time, and it will help you, to stay sober. Maybe your life will get a little bit better if you're not drinking daily. But that oftentimes for the majority of us, that's not the cure, that we have to continue to do work on ourselves in order to change the way that we think about things so that we can stay in reality, or, live, compatibly with reality. Let's see, what was it Alan Berger said, that we can have a life that we don't need to escape. And yeah, I think that's mainly what it was.
And Joe, I put a link in there to that from the Grapevine. It's on AA Beyond Belief, but it was published in the Grapevine, that letter, and you can actually click on that link and go read it. So we're coming up to an hour. I guess I've got some announcements to make, a couple of them anyway.
Okay.
Let's start with this one. I don't know if any of you guys went to Higher Palooza. I think they've actually had 2 of them now, because Higher Palooza 3 is going to be here on September 20th. Higher Palooza 3. It's a Zoom meeting, and it will be, I'll post some information about it on AA Beyond Belief and also on the Secular AA website, but it will be at, I don't know, I have to give you more information on that. Oh, it's at 9:20 at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. So anyway, and then another announcement is that Angela and I are going to be doing another live stream tomorrow.
Oh yeah. No, I'm
Yes.
just kidding. I have it on the calendar.
Yeah. And it's going to feature Steve Kay from the Manchester area in the United Kingdom. And the reason that we're doing it is we had a couple of requests from people in Europe who wanted to have a live stream when it's not 2 o'clock in the morning their time.
Right.
So we decided to do one. It'll be 6 o'clock p.m. British. They call it British summertime, and I did not know that. BST, British summertime.
Oh.
It'll be 6 o'clock their time, 6 o'clock p.m. And that will be, oh God, I don't know. You have to do the math and figure out what time it is where you live. I can't remember
Right.
now. Doggone
Yeah.
it.
It's
Anyway.
it'll be 11 a.m. Mountain Time, so
Okay, there you go.
10 a.m. Central, and then go whichever
11. That'll
direction
be
you need to.
12 Central and
Central?
1
Yeah, that's
Eastern.
right. Okay, there you go.
These time zones are hard to deal
I
with,
don't know
aren't they?
why that is. Again, I don't do the maths well, so maybe that's why.
The one thing about all of this and this COVID thing is we're going to get to know the time zones and all these different places.
Well, you'd think, but it's been, how many months now, and I still get confused.
Well, that's it. That's another episode of AA Beyond Belief, the podcast. Thank you for listening, everybody. It's been a lot of fun. What a great topic. Thanks for everybody who called. Thanks for all the comments on Facebook and YouTube. Like I said, we're going to be here actually tomorrow with our talk with Steve Kay. And then every Friday, we will do a sober distancing episode, a live stream. And we'll be back again real soon. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.